All right. Well, Rosemary's at St. Anthony's Hospital. Been there since Monday. Her blood pressure is doing something wonky, and she's seeing a cardiologist today. So it's not like she's unable. In fact, she might have done this. It wasn't that she was seeing the cardiologist this morning. She'd probably do it from her hospital bed. That's how much she loves y'all. So I'm going to do my best interpretation of Rosemary, and here it goes. These are her words, but she sent them to me. So welcome everyone to our open table, where we gather with respect in our common mission to end homelessness. Our table sits on the historic home of the Puyallup tribe of Indians, who have stewarded these lands for thousands of years and continue today as they meet together at their own tables, honoring their elders, teaching their children, and speaking the Lusutsi language. Today, I'm moved by the image of the table itself, a flat surface with legs where we eat, work, write, play games, create art, whatever. You don't need a house to have a table, but it helps. And while tables usually have legs, a bucket covered with a board can serve too. What counts is the gathering, the beginnings, the between times, the telling of stories, the laying of plans, whether they're practical or far-fetched. Today, I celebrate the Coalition's working table and honor the creativity of those who make tables wherever they can while living on our county's mostly unwelcoming streets. So here's a table poem from Joe Harjo, a member of the Cree Nation and the 23rd US Poet Laureate, the first Native American to hold that honor. Her poem, Perhaps the World Ends Here, speaks to the expansive power of the humble table and reminds us of the collective power we bring to the table by continuing to show up. So here it is. Perhaps the world ends here. The world begins at a kitchen table. No matter what, we must eat to live. The gifts of the earth are brought and prepared, set on the table. So it has been since creation, and it will go on. We chase chickens or dogs away from it, babies teethe at the corners, they scrape their knees under it. It's here that children are given instructions on what it means to be human. We make men at it, we make women. At this table, we gossip, recall enemies, and ghost of lovers. Our dreams drink coffee with us as they put their arms around our children. They laugh with us at our poor, falling down selves. And as we put ourselves back together once again at the table. This table has been a house in the rain, an umbrella in the sun. Wars have begun and ended at this table. It is a place to hide in the shadows of terror, a place to celebrate the terrible victory. We've given birth on this table. We've prepared our parents for burial here. At this table, we sing with joy, with sorrow. We pray of suffering and remorse. We give thanks. Perhaps the world will end at this table while we are laughing and crying, eating of the last sweet bite. So that's my interpretation of Rosemary. You have no choice of taking it or leaving it. I just gave it to you. So
Boom.
Rob is always good at posting the community norms, and I'm going to pass it right back to you, Rob.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Teresa, for stepping in to do that. And I know all of us hope Rosemary is able to get things under control and get back home, start feeling well again. I did drop the coalition meeting norms into the chat. Quick reminder, Zoom norms, please remember to mute yourself when you're not talking. If you have the ability, use the raised hand function to so that I can call on you if you have something to say. If you can't use the raise hand function and you have your camera on and move your hand around, then I will eventually see it, hopefully, and be able to call on you. And if you are doing something that might be distracting for others in the meeting, please turn your camera off. In terms of community norms, I just want to remind everybody that we strive to lead with a racial equity lens, to step forward and step back, give people, diversity of people, an opportunity to speak up, and so that we can hear from the myriad voices in our community across Pierce County. And please be aware of the time and agenda. It's always a struggle, as you know, if you've been to these meetings before, to stay on track with our agenda, but we do the best we can, and I appreciate your help on that. So I'd like to invite, if you are new to the coalition meetings, or if you've been away for a while and you'd like to just say hi and reintroduce yourself, this is an opportunity. Again, use the raise hand function. If you don't want to speak, you can also do that in the chat. So let's pause for a moment and see if folks would like to introduce themselves. Yeah, Diane, I see that you have your hand raised and you're muted, just so you know.
Undid it. I'm Diane Formoso from Caring for Kids.
Awesome. We look forward to hearing from you soon. And Megan, I see you have your hand up.
Hi, good morning. My name is Megan Monahan. I am the Social Services Manager at the Northwest Immigrant Rights Project based in the Tacoma office.
Awesome. Welcome, Megan. Jason, your hand's up.
My name is Jason Scales. I'm from Tacoma Community House in the Reach Center.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Jason. And Jesse.
Hi, I'm Jesse Black. I'm from Springbrook Connections.
Welcome again, Jesse. And anyone else who'd like to introduce themselves? I see your introduction in the chat, Alfredo. Thank you for joining us. All right. So if you don't have an opportunity to introduce yourself, actually,
You have one more
Kishana.
introduction.
Hi, good morning. I'm Kishana Smith. I am the Pierce County Navigator for the Basic Education and Adults Programming in Pierce County.
Welcome. Glad to have you join us this morning. Anyone else who would like to introduce themselves? All right, so please do use the chat if you'd like to introduce yourself there. One final thing I'll say during this introductory section of the meeting is we often remind folks we use the chat as an ongoing resource. It's not seen as being rude if you want to use the chat to share information, have conversations, hopefully not accusatory or negative conversations, but things that could be a resource for the community. The chat is retained at the end of every meeting, and it gets posted on the coalition website at pchomeless.org after the meetings. So please use that as a resource. And as Jay just said in the chat, please, if you have a moment, put your contact information in the chat if you're willing to share. That way we all have a way to reach back out to each other after the meeting. All right. So let's move to our first standing item that we do every week, and that is to talk about what's happening this week on the streets. A little bit of context for this morning's This Week on the Streets segment. As much as I hate to say it, we are looking at the potential for below freezing overnight temperatures again on Monday morning. Spring is not fully here, obviously, so and I know before the call started this morning, there was some conversation about the rain and hail squalls that moved through the area yesterday afternoon and the impact of that on people who are living unhoused. So in all of that context, just a reminder that we still have folks who are out living on the streets that need things like hand warmers, tarps, those kinds of things. And we'll talk about that and other items during this portion of the meeting. So Jay, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Hi, everyone. So on the subject of needing blankets and otherwise, we've seen snow all the way into April. Right now, we're going to be working primarily on donation base. So right now is really when we need to start looking at running a donation that is unexpected, because we're going to need it through this end cycle. So this is something to remember for now and something to plan for next year, that come around January, February, we need to be doing drives for blankets for May through April, so that we can make sure that we have all of these things. So please remember to check in with your staging site. I will put up the needs and shares. Please feel free to update that yourself. If you have concerns about updating it, do not know how to, or otherwise, please email or put it in the chat, and we will try to capture those and update it. Currently, it's an older one. I'm working on a new version that's easier to access and that's easier to add data to. So thank you for all of your patience and all of your input.
Thanks, Jay. Anyone with observations or needs that they've identified that folks have on the streets this week? Yeah, Norman.
Not so much of a need, but a question. A lot of people are coming to Fife's Community Center. I want to help them. They have a shopping cart, so they can't get on the bus to go get a driver's license, their social security card, and everything. Do we have like any type of storage for our homeless or unhoused community that anyone knows about?
Oh, you have hit on the $1 million question. So the answer is we do not have a good system currently for that kind of thing. It has been a primary barrier for folks accessing, say, warming centers, all kinds of services, because transportation in and of itself is a challenge, but then belongings is also a huge challenge. So it is something that's clearly being talked about. We had a cold weather or inclement weather debrief meeting with the county earlier this week, and that was one of those two items are the top priorities to get figured out in some way, so that people have access to resources when we have inclement weather. But it goes beyond inclement weather. It's an everyday resource issue. So if others have ideas for resources that they want to drop in the chat, that would be fantastic. But I'm not aware of certainly not a perfect system for helping people in that situation. Sally, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that there are people who are trying to stay in parks during the day, but at least in Tacoma, once the nighttime comes, they have to be out. Then they're moving to a nearby building where there's an overhang to stay out of the weather, but they need help kind of moving their stuff, and they can't leave anything in the park. The police have talked to them, but have not, only to be sure that they understood that they couldn't leave anything in the park. The police have so far at least have not hassled them, at least in the way they're experiencing the interaction with police. But what we're seeing is a lot of moving around between daytime location and nighttime location.
Thank you, Sally. Jan?
Yes, good morning. And I'm going to take advantage of this, the fact that folks are here who need to connect. Madeline Steer, you're with TRM. There you go, Outreach. Richard Dorset, you don't have your camera on. Richard knows of a woman in the Union Avenue Loop being treated for cancer. She's on chemo. Could the two of you connect on the chat as far as getting the TRM outreach van to the Union Avenue Loop, and with somebody who might reassure her that the women's shelter at TRM is a safe and welcoming place. That being said, I've already bugged other folks in the room. I know all the shelters have their criteria, which is how it works. I get it, but like poor Dr. Jarvie has to put up with people like me saying, please, begging on bended knee. Do you have room? Can we do this one little thing? So anyway, Madeline, your hand is up.
Yeah, go ahead, Madeline.
Oh, hey. So I've actually connected with that client. We were out at the Union Roundabout with Heal Team yesterday, Sunshine, and we've been working with them. She's not as reluctant to come to the shelter, even though we've tried several times. We get them here, she's out again. So if she can stay and is willing to stay longer than an hour or two, she's more than welcome to stay here. And so I'll keep trying.
Yeah, our fingers are crossed. I think that's a pretty standard story that can happen where folks are interested in shelter and then show up and kind of get cold feet and walk away. Others with observations from the street. Jay?
So I think that we sometimes do not take into account that sometimes people are willing to go to shelter, get to shelter, and then see somebody that they've had conflict with, or see another individual that there's been a fight, or that they've been blacklisted from, and within an hour they have to leave because that is a situation that they can't allow themselves to be into. And with PTSD, you can be triggering all kinds of things. And that can be a week of not being able to deal with anybody or any services after that. So sometimes when we're dealing with these situations, we are ignoring the why. And the why is trauma-based, PTSD-based, problem-based, fighting-based, food-based, survival instinct-based, and cortisol overload-based. So we can try our best to get people to shelter, but we need to be able to give them environments like a neurosafe space or something like that so that they can integrate into that environment, and we can find out what the problems are, and we can separate them out so that we can put one person over here and one person over there and they can both get shelter. Because that is like one of the biggest problems with getting into shelters. You're like, yeah, I'd love to go to shelter, but I don't know if Freddie Hula Goo is there and they're gonna kick my back, and I'm never gonna be able to go back to that shelter. And then that shelter is off limits in their mind after that point forevermore. They will never go back there. And if they do, it's a trust issue. And so they've got like 5 minutes the next time that they go before they're like, oh, nope, see another face, goodbye. So things that we need to build into our systems that would greatly help. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jay, for adding that perspective. And that's definitely critical. And it's why it takes time and care and trying to find the right solution for each individual. Ed, I see you have your hand up.
And remembered to be unmuted. That's scary, isn't it? I'm a chaplain with a couple of fire departments, and we interface with police departments quite often, as you can imagine. A officer that I talked with about 6 months ago called me at 11 o'clock 2 nights ago, and he had a family of 3 that had been burned out of a tent and had nothing basically, and was looking for some place where they could shelter for the night. And I started calling. He went to TRM. One of the problems is that one of the kids is 17 years old. He's not an adult, so you know, there's a barrier. But this is about the 3rd or 4th time that this has happened that I've been contacted by battalion chiefs or police officers saying, where do we take these folks? And I understand all of the needs for rules and barriers and to be able to continue your services, but we need somebody that can respond after 10:30 or 11 at night. And if you think you can, please give me a call. I'll put my phone number in the chat, and I won't publicize your phone number to everybody in the county, but we do need that resource. So as a group, please, if you have it, let me know.
Thank you, Ed. And Madeline, I saw you put your hand up. Did you want to say something?
Yes, Ed, I just wrote you in the chat. So we can offer those types of services. We also have a search and rescue team that goes out in the night and they can bring people to shelter. And I'm wondering if this family would also qualify for our Adams Family Shelters. So in the chat, I wrote you, I hope that you will follow up with me and maybe I can find something here at the mission that can assist you with those services.
We'll talk. Thank you.
All right, folks, that's why we have these conversations, to make those connections. So appreciate that. Anyone else who wants to kind of close things out for us this morning on This Week on the Streets? All right, so let's, Jay mentioned the need and share sheet. And I think, Jay, you were going to see if you could put that in the chat. Maybe you did and I missed it. But if you do have items that you need for doing the outreach in your own community that you do, you can also drop those into the chat and we'll make sure that they get added to the need and share sheet. Same thing if you have something that you can share with folks. And that could be anything from blankets to tarps to hand warmers to you name it, even tents. So appreciate folks doing that. And let's move on to our community spotlight. And I know in the chat or in the agenda, I said it was going to be Donna Zimmerman talking to us about Springbrook Connections, but I think, Jesse, it's going to be you. So my apologies that I got that wrong. I'll hand it over to you, Jesse.
Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing today? So I'm just going to be brief. I just found out yesterday that I was going to be speaking today. So I'm going to give you a little bit of history about Springbrook Connections and what we're doing now. We started in 2014 as a local community group trying to address small needs in our neighborhood. There are about 6 of us that started the organization, just trying to help people find food, furniture, and resources. That evolved over the years to when we opened our first office in 2018. It was a small resource office. We were actually sharing it with the insurance company in our neighborhood. People were in need of finding places to go to get help with their electricity, rental assistance, things like that. So we started building a resource manual and being able to share that information with the community. In the pandemic, those needs became much greater. So we had to enlarge what we were doing. We started providing COVID-19 vaccines in our neighborhood. We contracted with the city of Lakewood to serve the entire city. And so now we have a larger resource center in the Springbrook neighborhood, serving the entire city, making sure that people can access resources, helping them fill out applications, giving them computer access in our computer lab. We hold summer community meals from May to September, feeding anybody that wants to come to Springbrook Park and have a meal. That does include a lot of homeless people that live in Lakewood. We have a warming and cooling center that people can come in, get out of the weather, get a cup of coffee, watch some TV, just relax for a bit and decompress. We're open Monday through Friday at 10 to 3. And then we hold events throughout the year as well. So let's see, what else did I want to tell you? Actually, to be honest, we're still a small group of people that are run by people that live in the neighborhood. Diane Formoso is on our board and has been guiding us for the last few years. So I'm open to any questions you might have to expand on any services we offer.
Thanks, Jesse. And I do see that Shauna is in the meeting. So Shauna, did you have some information you'd like to add just so that to introduce what is provided at Springbrook?
No, Jesse has pretty much covered it, and I'm just in the office like 3 days a week. And then my coworker's there twice a week or 3 times a week. So it's just pretty much Jesse's covered it all.
Okay. Great. Teresa, I see you have your hand up.
I just want to encourage people to drop by because Shauna is a very welcoming person, and there are a lot of, they do things in a small, beautiful way. Also, I don't know, did you mention that you're going to be moving across the street in case people are?
Oh, no, I didn't actually. We actually are moving into a better location, actually. It's right there on Bridgeport Way and Solberg Drive on the corner next to the McCord Mart convenience store. So we'll be more visible, so more people will be able to access us easier. And that starts on April 1st.
Great. Well, thank you, Jesse and Shauna, for stopping by and letting us know more about what's being done there in the Springbrook community. Jay has requested if you could put the address of the resource in the chat, that'd be helpful. And thank you very much. Anybody else with questions for Jesse or Shauna? Yeah, Jan. And you're muted right now, Jan.
Okay, this is Jan from LASA, and I'm on the street in the rain so that I can have connection. And I don't know if it's going to work, because I don't know if you all can hear me.
We can.
You can? So
yeah,
I put my hand up a little bit too early. Sorry, Jesse. I was just wondering, because of where I am, if we could go next.
Oh yeah, that's going to be where we're going next. So let's go ahead and make that shift. What we're going to do in this next section of the meeting is we're doing, as you might be able to tell, a little bit of a focus on the Lakewood area. And we've asked Jan to spend a few minutes to talk about the services LASA provides. And then we'll have Diane talk about the Caring for Kids program. So go ahead, Jan.
Okay, so Jennifer is going to be talking about the services that LASA provides, but I was specifically asked what I thought the ramifications of the new Lakewood ordinance would be. And so I just wanted to address that part and wanted to say that it's kind of a very strange position to be in, because as you can imagine, we don't like these ordinances. But the question I was asked was specifically how I thought it would impact LASA. And I don't see it necessarily as impacting LASA. What I see it doing is impacting the people that we advocate for. When I say we're in a strange position, that's because the city of Lakewood has been very much behind us in helping us raise money to put in affordable housing. And so we feel that have a very strong partnership with them and really appreciate that partnership. But people have to agree to disagree. However, I can't wonder if we shouldn't be thinking in terms of having them listen to us as to why we think this is really bad for people. And I think we need to listen to them as to why they are concerned about having people on the street. So that was what I had to say. And then I think Jennifer's going to take it away, talking to our new hygiene center and other services. And thank you for letting me go.
Yeah, thank you, Jan. All right, and Jennifer, are you on the call?
Yeah, I'm here. My
Okay.
internet, I'm finding out it's a little unstable this morning, so bear with me if you would. We offer a few different things. You know, we have our traditional housing programs. In addition, we have the prevention where we can do some rent assistance. We are still facilitating that. The COVID-19 rent assistance program. We, outside of that, can do, you know, kind of whatever somebody might need with certain funding, depending on what the situation might be. right now, what Jan's talking about, the hygiene center, I think we're finally going to be breaking ground on the laundry facilities and the washer dryer, which is going to be great. We'll be able to just have that open up for people, you know, the certain hours to come in and, you know, get their laundry done, get a snack, you know, use our computer lab, and hopefully we'll be able to get them, you know, connected with services while they're in our center. I also have cats here, so that's kind of all I can think about off the top of my head. Jen kind of threw me being here. She said she may or may not be able to be, so I had to kind of pivot my mind there. So that's kind of all I have, unless you have some questions for me.
Okay, great. Teresa, I see you have your hand up.
This is about, we've for a long time been hoping for urban rest stops where people could come and do laundry and take showers and so forth. And I'm wondering if you've given any thought to how easily that center might be able to adapt to a warming center or a cooling center when those things come up, because that's one of the great draws to those kind of centers, is there's something you can do when you go there, like your laundry.
Right. So initially that is the idea, is to be able to also use the space as a heating and cooling center. There had been a couple budget issues. Jan probably doesn't want me to go too depth into that, but the plan was to build, you know, a larger area for people to be able to have that space for that. Instead, we're going to do what we can to get our computer lab bigger and just create other spaces in the office for people to be able to, you know, for heating and cooling. Yeah.
Great, thank you for that. And anyone else with questions for Jennifer? All right, so let's shift over to have Diane talk about caring for kids. Diane, welcome.
Thank you. This is exciting. Caring for Kids is a hardworking group of volunteers who services families in Clover Park, Stillicum, and University Place. We have a clothing bank that doles out brand new clothes with forms that we receive from the schools and also from the different organizations. Each regular school clothing bank form, you get a new coat, a new pair of shoes, 3 pairs of pants, and 3 shirts. We also have a school supply bank where people can get hygiene products and school supplies. And we now started 2 new events. One is we're now buying towels and washcloths, because when they're getting off the streets into an apartment, they need a towel and washcloth to take a shower. So we bought some, and we now have kits of them to give out to the families when they need them. We're also working with the YMCA. They're starting an early learning project, and we're going to supply the school supplies for the Y to be able to do that. We're really excited about that. We also give out new books all year long. We get them from First Books. We just did Breed Across America and gave out a couple of thousand books, and we love doing that. In August, we'll have our Ready to Learn fairs. There's 3 of them, and the first one is for all 3 school districts. And last year we were able to do 157 haircuts, which the Clover Park Tech College and other volunteers did. We also had immunizations, helmets, bike helmets by West Pierce Fire, and it was a true celebration. Things went out the door. We had a hot dog lunch, and then we also have a giveaway at Springbrook Park with the Springbrook Connection, and that's the Tuesday after our Saturday event. And then on Thursday, we have a back to school fair at Tillicum Community Center. It's a true celebration, and the kids are so excited about going back to school. In Clover Park School District alone, we have over 8,000 kids on free and reduced lunch, so the need out there is great. The next event is a holiday fair. We're already shopping for it. We did 800 families last year. to be able to purchase this stuff and have a place to put it, we rent a storage area in University Place, and they're very generous with us. And we have a large building, plus we have a second floor on it, so we can get all of our stuff in. We then have volunteers set up, volunteers that come and shop for the families, and then the schools come and pick it up. And it really is great to be able to service all those kids. We have Growing Up is Fun bags, which we give out at WIC and at different places that need the help for their preschool kids. This past year hasn't been that great because of COVID. Everybody's afraid. So we only gave out like 20 of them. So dental kits we really are into that. When I drove a school bus for Clover Park, in 1 week, I had 2 little boys get on my bus with their teeth rotted down to their gums. And that changed my view on how important toothbrushes are. So we've already, in this last week, put together 2,500, and we'll start getting them out at different events, plus, of course, Ready to Learn Fair and Christmas. Emergency meals is ongoing. Each of our emergency meals are in used grocery sacks, and there's a canned meal, a can of fruit, a cup of soup, oatmeal, a bar, and some Chewies. And this last week, we gave out 50 of them to the schools. Color books and crayons are really easy to do. We buy all of our crayons during the summer when they're 50 cents. We get our color books from the Dollar Tree, and we give them out at the food banks, especially like at Christmas. They can give out that as an extra gift. We also do McDonald's gift cards, $10 ones, that are given out to homeless families when they're sleeping in their car, etc. It's really been successful. I think we have like 500 already, McKinney-Vento kids in Clover Park. And so every day we're working on trying to make it easier on those families. We also have air beds, twin air beds, sheets, pillows, and blankets. And we only do the twin in the fact that a lot of these families, when they move into a 1-bedroom apartment with 50 people in it, that they need a place to move. So the twin blow-up beds can be put up against the wall. So we really, really like that idea. We also have laundry soap and dish soap, and we, hand that out. We're very excited about LASA starting their program, because I'm getting calls all the time for families that can't afford to wash their clothes. And I've already talked to the counselors, and they're all excited about it too. So we work directly with Springbrook Connection, Tillicum Community Center, LASA, Greater Lakes Mental Health, and the Methodist Church over on Tillicum Boulevard. And so that's pretty much what we do. Are there any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Diane. Let's see if we've got any questions from folks. I did see a request if you could put contact information in the chat, Diane. So
okay,
that would be fantastic. Anyone with questions? Well, I have a question. It's not for you, Diane. It's actually for Jesse. But I know you're not on camera now, Jesse. You are still there. Good. One of the purposes of this conversation today and the timing, as Jan alluded to, is tying in with the passage of the camping ban ordinance that happened in Lakewood earlier this week. So one question that we had was, how do you see the camping ban ordinance impacting the work and your ability to do the work?
The fact is that people are still going to be homeless no matter what the city says. Okay. So the work still needs to be done regardless. We can try to increase our referrals into the shelters, but we all know how tough that can be at times. Our team is going to continue to do the work and provide a safe place for people to come in, get out of the weather, get a meal, regardless of what the city says. And we can encourage them to try to seek housing, but we can't force them to do anything. So we're still going to be out there working in the community.
Well, we appreciate the work that all of you are doing in the Lakewood area to address the needs of the people who are priced out of housing, dealing with other struggles that lead to homelessness. You're right. People are not going to just magically go away because the ordinance passed, as we've seen far too much here in Tacoma. So excuse me, anything else that folks would like to ask of Diane or Jennifer or Jesse before we move on to the next section? Teresa.
Just because no one else is raising their hand, so I feel compelled. But I do want to say this, that before I went to your space, Jesse, I didn't realize how much was actually going on in Lakewood. I think sometimes we assume that almost everything comes out of Tacoma. So it's really good to hear more about the good work that you're all doing, and some of the stuff that Diane talked about with prevention and helping people to not end up without anything when they're still housed in one way or another. These are all very important pieces of work, and I just really, I'm sure others really appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
All right, if folks have other questions, please do use the chat. Again, as a reminder, that's a resource for this whole community. So please ask questions there, contact each other if you need to make connections in the Lakewood area. And I'm gonna real quickly shift over to a little bit of a celebration that I think we need to spend a few minutes on this morning. And I noticed that Pierce County Council member Ryan Mello, chair of the council, is on the call. I'm not sure, Ryan, if you have the ability to speak right now, but I do want to, going to bring this up during the advocacy section of the meeting, but I'd like to do it now instead to acknowledge the passage of the 1/10 sales tax for affordable housing that took place in the county in a marathon meeting on Tuesday. So Council Member Mello, do you have an opportunity to say anything, or maybe you're multitasking and unable to?
Well, thank you, Rob. I have been listening in this morning. Thank you for allowing me to listen in and always allowing me to learn in this forum. And I had my deep gratitude for everyone doing the hard work on the streets. I thank you for pausing to celebrate. You all did really monumental work for many years to build the spines of elected officials to do what we need to do to generate revenue. We have a local revenue option that we've all been fighting for a long time. And you all have helped make the case. You all help prove that we put the money, public money, to very good use and leverage it with the hard work of volunteers and professionals. I'm really proud of the work of the county council that we were able to find the 5 necessary votes to pass the 1/10 for housing and related services. And really looking forward to investing these dollars. We're gonna, I'm really confident we're gonna put them to really good use. So a lot more to come. We're leaning on advisory boards to draft what we're calling a 6-year plan for the dollars. So we're going to be leaning on our implementation advisory board for the comprehensive plan to end homelessness. We're going to be leaning on what is known as our another board that advises us on affordable housing investments. And then we're also going to be leaning on our behavioral health advisory board, because some of these dollars can be used for supportive services, I think, as everybody knows, for those who will be living in permanent supportive housing. And some of these dollars can also be used for behavioral health treatment facilities. So that's why we'll be leaning on those 3 very capable advisory boards to not only put together the initial 6-year spending plan for these dollars, but also when the notice of funding availabilities go out, we'll be leaning on those 3 advisory boards to evaluate the proposals that come in and make recommendations to council. So, it's been demonstrated that this $20 million a year we're going to raise with the 1/10 is going to leverage at least 5 times every year. That's that's known from previous investments. That's very exciting. And as Rob said, I would just end with gratitude for people for having the persistence to not give up, to make the case, and to prove the value of these public investments, and to build the spines of elected officials to do what we're called upon to do. So thanks for letting us do this work.
Thank you, Council Member Mello. And I do have one question for you, and I know I didn't let you know about this ahead of time, but I thought it was really classy that you changed the name of the this to the Maureen Howard Affordable Housing Act. And whose idea was that? Was that something that you came up with over the weekend, or what prompted it?
Yeah, we came up with it a couple of weeks before, when we were working on the final amendment with Councilmember Morell about what he needed in order for us to secure our 5th vote. We incorporated it in that amendment that we were negotiating very heavily and intensely over the last 2 weeks. I thank you for reminding us of that. That's a very special thing that we're able to do. This is and will be forever known as the Maureen Howard Affordable Housing Act. I'll be signing it actually here soon. I just saw it in my inbox. So I'll be signing the ordinance and delivering it. I'm going to hand deliver it actually to Executive Dammeier later today. And he still needs to sign it, everyone. So it requires executive signature. So if you have a free moment, send him an email saying that you expect him to sign it. And as you noted, Rob, at the end of at that portion of the meeting when it was my job to call the roll after a 2-hour public hearing and debate by the council, I had a hard time calling the roll. I got pretty emotional calling the roll for the Maureen Howard Affordable Housing Act. But it's really quite special that we were able to do that.
Yeah. And kudos to you and council members. That was a marathon meeting on top of approving the 1/10 of 1% affordable housing sales tax. There also was the issue of the Pierce County Village on the agenda. Lots of concern expressed in that vote as well, but that also was approved at the very end of the meeting at, what was it, 10:30? Felt like, yeah, 10:30. Yeah. So really appreciate the stamina of everyone to work through the tough issues and get to where we're at this week. And I think it's important that we make sure we acknowledge and celebrate when there are these kinds of successes and victories, because heaven knows we have plenty of pieces of bad news that come across our desk every week. So we got to celebrate the good ones.
Could not agree more.
Thank you. And thanks for letting me put you on the spot.
Anytime. Thank you.
All right. So let's shift to our review of last week's breakout conversation. And Timothy, I saw you drop that in the chat. Would you like me to put that on screen?
Yeah,
Okay,
am
great.
ready for that. I am going to exhibit learning behavior by being prepared for you to go full screen.
All right, here we go. And that's why I warned you before I just threw it up again.
Exactly. So last week we talked about using creativity to respond to homelessness. I think it was a bit of a disparate discussion. I mean, we heard from 4 different groups during the presentation, and the discussion was kind of all over the place, and the note-taking was a bit spottier than usual, but it really kind of came to the role of creativity in our work and how we can support that. I think that what I saw reflected there is a lot of times we think about creativity and doing cultural work as being kind of at the pinnacle of Maslow's hierarchy, you know, something that comes after self-actualization. And that really the reality of the street is that, you know, that stuff is really, really helpful to have at the base as well. And part of helping people to have the opportunities to be fully human. And we should be thinking about the various ways that we can integrate that into our work. So some of the more you know, concrete things that came out of it that would help is donations of supplies. Collaboration is always key to projects such as this. Something that just continually comes up, that central location for space and storage and places to create, addressing the whole person. Teresa dropped her email in there as being a contact point for a collection of supplies that people might have. Somebody mentioned how useful it might be to have an accessible list of whatever resources are out there. You know, a lot of discussions surrounding Jay's vision for having some sort of a dedicated maker space and this whole idea of a maker space and how that might be brought to fruition, the creation of makers kits. Ideas to be considered, again, coming back to that idea of how this cultural work is, it means opportunities to be in relationship and to be in community and to be a whole person. And that being important, the drama troupe that used to be organized over at Nativity House was something that was fondly remembered. And, you know, there's this note about the balance and the whole supply and demand thing being out of kilter. Sorts of things that people want the most of tend to be the things that are least often donated. Something for us to talk about. This really cool vision of maybe a mobile setup that could go out to sites. Pretty cool list. I'm going to step out of note taker / facilitator role for a moment just to say that this work is really right down my alley and dovetails nicely with the kind of work that I'm interested in doing in the community. And I'm going to be thinking about how I can help to move this forward along with my project and thinking about that. So I just want to put that out there. A lot of times great ideas come up here that there's really no capacity for anybody to take up. And I think that this does not need to fall into that category. Thanks, everyone. Oh, and always there's the resource notes at the end, which I try to keep as current as I can.
Thank you, Timothy. And I see Jay, you have your hand up.
So working on this as an actual project. So a year ago, I came in here and I was like, hey, I want to do Seated Hopes, which is a project for neurodivergence and otherwise. And I'm here to see what we're missing so that we can build in the things that we're missing the most in our system. And it's been a year now, and I've got a pretty good idea of it. I would like to take these notes. I'd like to work with everybody that has ideas. I'd like to work with Tim on this. I'm going to be building a Patreon so that we can have updates weekly. And that Patreon will allow people to donate anywhere from $1 to otherwise. And that will give you access to different portions of the projects that we're working on. So the goal here is to make a option for people who don't want to donate physically, but an option for people that want to keep up to date that's affordable, like $1 a month, to somebody who actually wants like full participation, know what's going on, weekly updates. So that's kind of the goal that I'm working on right now. I am open to input, but this is vital. Working for neurodivergence, working for art, working for humanizing our lowest human population. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. Thanks. And I'll second Teresa's comment in that the chat about thank you for taking the time to percolate these ideas. I think there's definitely a need. So thank you. So we're going to shift to this week's breakout conversation. And I realized as I was pulling the agenda together yesterday that I didn't already have a breakout question sort of set up. So I went with what was top of mind, which was taking a look at the inclement weather response that we've had in our community over the last few months. And from your perspective, whether you do direct outreach, whether you sat in meetings related to inclement weather, or if you just have thoughts, having small group conversations about what worked well this winter and what still needs fixing in the community response to inclement weather. We're at a point of shifting where winter and cold is coming to an end, and or at least we hope it is. And we may have a couple of months of breathing room before, what do you know, it's going to be hot. And I sure hope we don't have smoke again, but if history is any indication, we will. So I thought we could talk a little bit about what we've learned from the cold weather and what we think we need to do better as we move into the summer. I'm going to put everybody in breakout rooms. Let's see, we've got 63 folks here. So I'm going to create 7 rooms, breakout rooms of 8 or 9 folks. If one person in your breakout room could take notes, that would be fantastic, and drop those notes in the chat when you come back here. And I will send the question out as I create the room so that everybody's aware of what we're talking about during this conversation. One final reminder before I open the rooms, if you want to save the chat from the first part of the meeting, please pause and do that now. As I said, the chat does get posted on the website, but it won't get posted for a little while. And if you have notes that are in the chat that you want to retain right now, please go ahead and do that. If you hit the button that shows the 3 little dots and then hit save chat before you leave the room. And we will spend the next, I'm going to cut this a little short. I'm going to do 10 minutes since we're behind on the agenda. So we'll be back here at about 10:10 and away we go. Welcome back, everyone. And this is one of my favorite parts of the meeting, when we come out of the breakouts and everybody has their cameras on. I swear one of these days I'm going to remember to take a screenshot. And well, maybe I just did. So the reminder is thank you. Hopefully that was a good conversation. Those who took notes, please remember to drop the notes from your chat into the chat so that Timothy can pull together and do his magic for a summary for next week. And we, as I mentioned earlier, are behind on our agenda. So let's shift over to our updates from government partners. First, let's start with Caleb from the city of Tacoma. What do you have to share with us this week?
Morning, everyone. As some of you might be aware, that the safe parking at Holy Rosary is projected to start operating on April 3rd. Catholic Community Services, as a reminder, is the provider for that site, and the location is the Holy Rosary parking lot that is directly behind on their campus. They will serve up to 40 individuals or 20 vehicles. They will have hygiene stations on site, case management through their family housing network, and they will be able to take families and single individuals. After 90 days, they will evaluate whether they can add recreational vehicles on that site. If you look at it over 10,000 feet up above, you will see on the backside along where the highway is there, that's where they're considering placing those as time goes on. As you also know, that inclement weather, the season is ending in the end of March with our contract obligations. And so we are aware of maybe the weather is still not going to be above threshold. So we'll continue to work with TRM at that Holy Rosary location to see if we need to extend that site. and then also working with Catholic Community Services to make sure they have what they need as we go into kind of the unpredictable month of April. So those are the two big updates. I do also want to give you a heads up that last night, for your awareness, on Tuesday, we do plan to post at the Union Clover for a 2-week removal. We have been getting a lot of communication from our emergency services and the community around there, some of the concerns. And so the city is looking to post for a 2-week removal starting on Tuesday.
So due to the number of folks who are at that site, Caleb, is there any work being done to try to help figure out where people are going to go?
Yeah, we've been there pretty consistently. I know that Richard has also been there and had a presence and seen Heal. I think Heal has been there almost every day to be working with those folks to help either connect them with particular types of shelter that they're looking for. Some of the names that have popped up in some of the inner circles have been put on some of the lists and have a period of about a couple of weeks out before they could get in there. They've been prioritized with some of the health concerns with some individuals. So we have been working with those folks to be able to get into some of our micro shelters or asking for some of the other non-congregate shelter. So that has been a priority for the HEAL team with those individuals. And then the other ones are offered all the services as those come up. We will continue to do outreach at that location all the way through the 2-week posting and then as during the removal.
One last question for you, Caleb. What's the city's assessment of the number of folks who are at that site?
You know, I don't have the numbers because I haven't seen a final approval for that. So that usually does come. When I do see that, I can send it out to let you all know what the number count we do have from the city side.
All right, that'd be helpful. I know that typically our individual outreach folks have a different number, but it's still good to know what the city's perspective is. Jay, I see your hand up.
Some questions real quick, Caleb. Sorry, wrong button. So I want to say thank you because we are getting more communication from Tacoma and Pierce County about our shelter numbers, and that has really been appreciated. On the other hand, what we're noticing is that some of those numbers are repeated and don't change but once a week. Is that once a week report cycle that is happening there for you guys?
So we take availability in a couple of ways. The way that we publish it right now is once a week through our website. And that is just an update that we're given on Monday of that week by the providers of those emergency and temporary shelters. But the Tacoma Rescue Mission and our outreach providers, and including HEAL, do a pretty consistent communication with all of our shelter providers to determine shelter availability. So they are constantly in contact with what they expect is going to actually become available, whether it's in a day or two or by the end of the week. And they're trying to communicate with those folks who have done assessments and are ready for intake services at shelters so that they're aware for a phone call from the providers depending on the shelter. So that's what we do specifically with the outreach part. Now, I know that the coalition does post, they try to post a daily count on how much available shelter there is at any given spot. And I know we've been in conversation with you all and the county about how effective is that being, how can we support each other? Because that is a comprehensive plan to end homelessness and a city's homeless strategy to be able to have as a daily count. So we know directly when it's available. And so everybody can understand that whether they're contracted or non-contracted providers.
Okay, the other question that I had. So inclement weather, one of the things that came up in the debrief was those numbers for how many people were served. Is there any way that you could provide those numbers for inclement weather so that we can get the right numbers for next year and we just have that in our data sets?
Yeah, absolutely. And typically, so with the Holy Rosary, they give me at the end of the month, what they served in terms of how much they actually served compared to what was available. And then also Catholic Community Services and LEG. LEG has not had an opportunity to need to increase shelter this year. But for CCS, they give us a number as well when asked. They usually give it after they do an inclement weather. So my team will just compile those and send them off to the team so that you're aware. And that can help determine how much we need to add in terms of capacity, what we need to consider in terms of shelter type, and see if we can look at other resources to be able to help, serve those folks that are unsheltered.
Thank you. And that will help us with our contract and what we actually need to request and what we don't request. So that gives all of our providers a lift. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Trey.
Caleb, I see Jeffrey and Mark, your hands are up, and we'll get to you in just a moment. I just wanted to interject regarding the shelter availability list. I'm happy if it would be helpful to sit in any conversations between the city and the county about that effort. I don't think we as a community or as a county want to continue to rely just on the coalition website for that information. It seems like that's something that should live within either the city, the county, or COC, or some appropriate place where it's being maintained. I dropped in the chat right now. The county is their county data staff are sending me an update every day, and then I'm going in and updating the page, which is actually an improvement to the process. But I don't know that that's necessarily relying on that volunteer effort is necessarily the best way to carry out this work long term. So please let me know if I can help in that conversation.
Yeah, Rob, I think, maybe a meeting is meant to be scheduled then so that we can,
Perfect.
Really understand that. I appreciate that. Thanks, Rob.
Yep. Jeffrey?
Caleb, how are we doing on that document to help?
Yeah, Jeffrey, I don't know if you saw my message back. I saw you sent it earlier and then I didn't see it and replied.
No, I missed it.
That's okay. It's with media and communications right now. We're working on making it so that it's easier to digest for their side before we put out any product. But it looks like we're good on our end with the director's side, and hopefully we'll be able to have a product for you soon.
Good. Yeah, we want to make sure that we're announcing here and with Associated Ministries.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks a lot, Caleb.
Thank you.
And Mark, your hands up.
There we go. Unmute. Sorry. That's Caleb, in terms, I work with an organization called Miracle Messages, and our goal is to help individuals who have lost contact with their loved ones reconnect. And it's during the pre-closures of these encampments. Is that an option that people are given or asked about, if there's anybody that they would like to reconnect with? Being connected with other providers in the area is fantastic. But is there ever that kind of inquiry about, is there anybody in your life, either in the immediate area or in another state that you've lost contact with that we can help you reconnect with and, help you get home?
Mark, that's a good question. I would assume that conversation typically happens with the case management and the shelter system as they're trying to figure out kind of transition plans into more stable situations. I do know that does come up in the field often. I think even Richard, I don't know if Richard's here, just had a couple that they particularly did that were in encampments that actually returned back home and were able to connect with either social or community or family support, which is super positive. So that's something that we can definitely talk with the HEAL team who is out there in the encampments and doing outreach out there. And it's something we can also make sure our providers know and they're aware of too as well, is that individuals that may want to reconnect back with their community or social resources have that opportunity. So Mark, if you want to put your information in the chat, I'll see if we can do some connections and making sure that we're aware of that.
That'd be fantastic. I appreciate it, Caleb. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark.
All right, and Ryan, your hand's up. Why don't you wrap us up on the questions for Caleb?
Sure. Caleb, could the HEAL team, when they do their little survey and they just say refuse services, could they start recording why? Because I think it's a placebo for the public to think, well, these people are ungrateful and they just don't want service, they don't want help, which is not the case. And why would help, quantify that and maybe we could come up with some better solutions so that they would take services, right?
You know, Ryan, that actually, as everybody was asking questions, this actually comes to a very specific thing that I think we need to be really thinking about, and something that I know for our strategy and the comprehensive plan to end homelessness, and something that a lot of you have brought up as a really, really important factor to have, and that is the by name list. I think the by name list is the next actual possible action we need to take as a community to really understand everybody's individual needs and how we can target specific resources to specific groups of individuals. So if we could, so part of that could be to very well address, Ryan, yours, why are they refusing services? Because what are their specific needs and why aren't we addressing those? Now, typically when we get those, we start to look at big chunks, right? If it's individuals that need an X service, like maybe it's substance use disorder, I'm not sure, I'm just throwing that out there. We may try to start putting more resources into the system to be able to address that, as if that's the barrier to hit. But once that list actually changes, we change how we actually respond and what resources we do want to put in there. So this is something I think we are really kind of digging into a little bit to understand that, because in order for us to get data that helps us informed around specific groups and specific populations, for us to be able to target and emphasize and prioritize funding to specific groups, especially those vulnerable populations like the BIPOC community, like DV, like veterans, so on and so forth, families. Those are ones that we really need to be able to look at. And so that's something that I think that we should be able to do. I can bring that up to the HEAL team to see how we track that, if we already track that, and how we can do for the time being. But I am opening up and maybe an opportunity for people, and I'll put my contact information. If you have ideas about by name lists, I know the youth and the veterans do it currently in this community. I know that there is a kind of we're pretty close to the HMIS system, other than the folks that have been out in encampments for a while and may have not touched the HMIS system. So that's a big concern for us. But we really do want to know, how can we actually develop a by name list that we know we can protect and that we can use it to inform our decision making, because that's probably a lot of data points that we do need to do. So I know that that's a big topic. I know it's a huge thing, but it's a really big need, because it lets us and informs us and know about what decisions we can make in the future or immediately, actually. So something to just, ask everybody, if you have ideas, please send them my way. I'll be working with the county, other jurisdictions. I don't know where they're at in terms of ready for their by name lists. If we have to do it just for the city of Tacoma for the time being, we'll definitely have those conversations.
All right. So I see your hands up, Sally.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the communication between the unhoused person and the person offering services is a two-way thing. And if the person who is unhoused doesn't trust the person offering services, or feels they're being judged, or feels that people are making assumptions about what they need without asking and listening, that all of those things could result in a person refusing services because they just don't feel right about the situation. And so one of the things I think that we all need to reflect on is, on any given day, we may not be that person's angel. They may need somebody different to be talking with them, listening to them, whatever. And so the act of offering services is the result of a relationship. It is not a transaction. And so we should not expect, just because I show up and I think you look like you might be having a mental health issue, I offer you mental health services. That simply isn't going to work. So when we have the conversation about refusing services, we need to have the companion conversation about how services should be thought about and offered, how the person that we're talking to should be thought about and understood and listened to. It's way more complicated than I gave them a referral and they didn't do it, or I gave them a business card and they dropped it on the ground. We really need to get into the human being part of this. Otherwise, people are not going to accept services, and they're going to have darn good reasons why they're not. Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Sally.
thanks, Sally.
Yeah. All right.
excuse me, I don't, when Madeline said that the woman with cancer had refused services, there was some activity in the chat. That's a cop out, that sort of, and I was shocked because I've done outreach work and it takes a lot of heart. And I just think, you know, it'd be more constructive to say, hey, let's work on a by name list. Let's work on resources. I don't know if this is a common problem, but I was shocked. I almost like left, and I'm glad I stayed because it didn't continue. But I would just like to suggest, if people disagree with each other here, that they put it in a positive light.
Well, as you can tell, as you stayed in the meeting, we typically do. Everybody who attends these meetings agrees that we're here to work together, to network, to find solutions to end homelessness. That's the whole reason we're here. We do definitely have disagreements though, and sometimes those disagreements get pretty heated. So yeah, sometimes people say things that even can be misinterpreted as being an attack. But thankfully we do hang in there. A lot of us attend these meetings every week and have working relationships, and we recognize that we may disagree with each other on approach, but that we're trying to all move things to a good place. So just like when we are working with clients and it takes time to get through to a good place, I think that happens with those of us in this room too. Virtual room as it is. So thank you for bringing that up. Jay, why don't you go ahead and close this out?
I just wanted to let you know, when it's like, that's a cop-out, it's not a cop-out that the person isn't entering service. It's a cop-out that we're not looking deeper into it. It's a cop-out of the system, not of the person. We're not judging the homeless person for leaving. We're judging the system for not looking at it at a different perspective. The negative connotations of those comments aren't towards the team trying or the people. It's the perception that we're dealing with in anger in our community that we're hearing from our council, because those are the words that we're hearing. And so we're mimicking that frustration from them. So I know that sometimes context is everything, and sometimes we're missing some of the context, and our frustration at this point of not having the services that we need and the capacity to help the people that need it the most has been frustrating to all of us. So try not to look at that as we're judging the homeless person, because we're not in any shape. We're not really angry with outreach. They're doing the best they can with the capacity that they have. We just need to learn how to integrate new ideas into things that are systems that are what we have now. It's really not the judgment. It's trying to figure out how we can fix it.
Thanks, Jay. And Norman, your hand's up.
Very well said, Dion. And also, please understand, we need to hear that criticism representing the city of Fife. I'm sure Caleb doesn't take it personal. I know the outreach people don't. We need to hear your criticism, because we do need to do a better job at improving our programs and doing outreach and talking with people and going deeper and farther. I mean, I know I'm getting better all the time, but we 100% need to do a better job at it. So keep that criticism coming. We have thick skin.
All right. All good conversation. And like I said, we're spending this time together to try to move folks to a good place that's a acceptable place. And it's always going to be a bit messy, but we got to keep on track. So let's shift to the rest of our government updates. I did want to let folks know Jeff Rogers had to step away for a meeting that started at 10. We were originally going to be doing these government updates around 10. So it's 10:30. What's time? Jeff did want me to share that the only update he had today is that the funding applications for the homeless housing program, the HHP grants, are due today. So just a reminder about that. If you are working on an HHP grant, I'm sure you're already aware that today's the deadline, but just wanted to provide that prompt at Jeff's request. And let's see, do we have anybody from the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department who wanted to do an update today?
Oh my. Yes, I can do that. Jenny is not
Awesome.
here because she got vaccinated like the good person that she is. And so she is dealing with some side effects. So I will cover very briefly CD, even though that's not my area of expertise. But she let me know that things like COVID, flu, ILI, influenza-like illnesses are quiet. There are no updates on Shigella, and currently our epidemiologist team is looking into getting more updates in terms of data for that. Yes, chemical disease. So those are the updates. She's not here. I don't have the information. So if I can put her email in the chat if folks have specific questions for her or specific needs in terms of like vaccinations or in terms of treatment and that kind of a thing. I'll be sure to do that. In terms of EH, so environmental health, which is what I do, we have a few updates. We're wrapping up our inclement weather after action review. So like most of us could probably do whenever there's an activation, we always do a review of what happened, what worked, what didn't work, reviewing some data, trying to compile all that information together so we can, move forward in a better way. So we're doing that in terms of our cold weather response. I have some information for cold weather data as well. I shared that briefly earlier this week with the debrief, but I can go ahead and share them really quickly, just a summary of what we saw. We saw the most ED visits, so emergency department visits in February, with an increased rate of about 20 people per 10,000 visits. Strangely enough, for hospital visitations, it was actually higher in November and December with about 65 per 10,000. And that's generally. So that's not even specifically to people who were identified as homeless or houseless. This is specific to just everyone in Pierce County. There was a slight uptick for CO ED visits, so people having carbon monoxide poisoning issues. Usually that's less than 5, but we saw them go up a little bit in November and December. For trench foot, this is specifically for people who are experiencing houselessness. We did see an increase of trench foot / immersion foot in December with about 14.5 per 10,000 people. That's an uptick from what our usual numbers are, which is less than 5 in November and February and January. So in December, we saw the highest rate of trench foot for folks experiencing homelessness. Also for burns, we saw very few actually. So again, generally less than 5, but we did see an uptick in November with about 8.6 per 10,000 visits. So those are just the rough numbers. That's all very preliminary data, so it hasn't gone through any kind of statistical analysis. It's just very raw information for folks. But I think it does help narrow down, for us at the very least, what we can do moving forward and what our major concerns are. And it looks like our major concerns are trench foot and cold injuries, so frostbite, hypothermia. So for those that don't know, Essence combines cold injuries into one singular diagnosis. So frostbite, hypothermia are just the same thing for them. So that's our review. We're also planning for hot weather, as we probably all are, as we mentioned earlier in this. So TPCHD is working on our hot action plan. That is just, a general of what we here at TPCHD can do. I'm hoping to connect with folks in the future in the next few weeks to kind of do some information gathering and planning in terms of what TPCHD can do with our partners. So all that being said, that's about all updates I have. Oh, we also are still doing our houseless focus groups. So folks that are providers, we're still looking for participants to do focus groups to get more information, to compile a report, because obviously this qualitative data does not accurately match everything that we see on the streets and in the field. So if you or anyone you know of is interested, TPCHD is hosting those focus groups. So yep, those are all of the things that I have. If folks have questions for me, I'll stick around for the next half hour, and I'll be in the chat too. So I know we're short on time, so we'll move forward with what we have.
Thank you, Isaiah. And yeah, look forward to partnering on planning for summer and the unfortunate likelihood of hot weather and maybe smoke. Let's see. So Timothy did a reminder in the chat. If you were in a breakout room and you have notes and you haven't had a chance to put those in the chat yet, please do. He's only seen 3 groups post their notes in the chat so far. So if I remember right, we had like 8 or 9 groups meeting, so please do that. I don't think we have anybody from Pierce County Department of Emergency Management in the room, do we? Are there any updates? I'll pause for a moment. All right, so let's shift on to the rest of our meeting. We've got 23 minutes left before everybody needs to go to other things. Real briefly, advocacy updates. I did not have, I admit that I did not have a chance to spend time with the City of Tacoma agenda this morning to see if there are topics that we need to alert folks to. Sally's shaking her head.
No, they're in Washington, DC next week. There's no meetings.
Okay, great. So it's just as well that I didn't spend my time trying to look for the agenda. And we already celebrated the accomplishments of the Pierce County Council from earlier this week. So what I am going to do is to put into the chat some links. These are links that are similar to what you find at the end of the weekly summaries that Timothy's been doing. But this relates to my day job with the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance. There, at the end of today, there will be 4 weeks left in this current legislative session, and bills are continuing to be heard and passed or die in the legislature. This week, the big news was that the Senate released their capital budget and their operating budget. And one of the challenges in the operating budget, I've passed along action alerts in the past urging folks to tell the legislature they need to help fill backfill a funding gap related to the document recording fees that help, that's funding that helps fund homeless services across the state. Unfortunately, in the operating budget, they actually, the Senate current proposal provided fewer dollars to backfill that funding gap than even the governor's budget. It sounds like there's some chance that a mistake was made and that they will remedy that before moving forward. But I did want to alert everyone that I unilaterally decided that I'm going to speak to the Senate in a budget hearing this afternoon on behalf of the coalition, urging that they remedy that issue and provide more funding to backfill for the document recording fees. So I took action, seek apology. The other thing I will tell you that is that I also signed on behalf of the coalition on a national petition from the National Organization to End Homelessness regarding criminalization of homelessness, opposed to criminalization of homelessness on behalf of the coalition earlier this week as well. So I channeled my inner Maureen and just took action. So so if you do have a chance though, please do join one of the Housing Alliance meetings regarding the ongoing work in the legislature. And 4 weeks left in this marathon session. It wraps up on April 23rd. I also put on the agenda a brief update about the Pierce County Comprehensive Plan to End Homelessness. I don't have much to share. I will put the link to the comprehensive plan in the chat. There's not a whole lot new to share right now, but the advisory board for the implementation of the comprehensive plan to end homelessness will meet again on the first Friday of next month. So I will preview that agenda and remind folks about the opportunity to listen in and provide public comment when we get there. But I just want to constantly have this on our agenda so that we're aware. You know, there was a lot of work done. Mentioning Maureen again, Maureen was very involved in pushing the county to create that comprehensive plan to end homelessness. So we're going to keep that front and center moving forward. So let's shift over to updates for the Safe Sites for All committee. Jan?
Yes, it seems that weather is on everybody's mind, and it's only going to stay on everybody's mind. So our Safe Sites for All meeting is every Monday at noon. Register on the website for Safe Sites for All noon meeting. Inclement weather will be the first thing on the agenda. We will also talk about our safe parking network and our City of Tacoma safe parking. We now have 2 parallel ways to get into safe parking as of April 3rd. One is with the City of Tacoma at Holy Rosary. The other is with basically our coalition and Pierce County Human Services Safe Parking Network. Nicholas Turner, I'm hoping to see you Monday at that meeting. That would be great to see you on a regular basis again. The third thing we're going to talk about is Kenneth King had provided a crisis plan for basically the discussion on a by name list to help folks move out of homelessness. If you ever went to nursing school, you know what a nursing care plan is. Well, Kenneth has provided a model, and we can modify that model for perhaps considering a by name crisis plan list. So hope to see anybody and everybody Monday noon Zoom. Thank you.
Thanks, Jan. And I did mention in the chat, I'll double back with the folks at Pierce County. It was mentioned that the by name list was one of the things called for in the comprehensive plan to end homelessness. And I know the county was convening some meetings regarding that at the end of last year. I'll touch base and see if somebody can provide an update soon about what the status of that effort is. So yeah. And let's move in. I don't think we have any committee updates, but I see Ed's hand up, and I bet I know one of the things Ed wants to talk about. Go ahead, Ed.
Oh, okay. Actually, I had a question in that, and it's for Caleb from the city of Tacoma. We've talked multiple times about sharing names that the HEAL team collects when they are out at various sites and talking with people. I've been told by members of the HEAL team that they do have their names and phone numbers. And I guess the question is, where are we on that? Caleb, if you're still here. And secondly, we will have the homeless memorial on Sunday, this coming Sunday at 5 o'clock at Shiloh Baptist Church. We have 58 people that have died in the last 3 months that we will be remembering. So thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And the reason I'm looking at my screen and don't look like I'm paying attention is that I'm copying the information about the memorial on the website so I can paste it in the chat. But if you do go to pchomeless.org, you can find the flyer with the information about the homeless memorial, as well as information about where you can find the memorial streaming on Facebook if you're not able to make it in person. All right, so let's shift into good trouble announcements. We still have 43 folks here. What do you have that you would like to share with the group that's still assembled and let folks know about? This is the quietest this group has been all day. Jeffrey, go ahead.
Well, I will say this. I've been working with the city for months. Started middle of December. Their version of safe parking is a full shelter. The general safe parking idea was not to be a full shelter, but to be a parking lot, a safe parking lot for people overnight. And this is where the difficulty in helping the city understand what the safe parking network is. They now have a pretty good understanding. I've been dealing with the community and neighborhood services team. I've been working with permitting, and they have finally agreed with me. Now, there are no formal announcements as of yet, but there will be coming up shortly about how the city, how churches can tell the city we're going to do safe parking as a parking lot, not a shelter in the future. And that should be coming down the pike pretty soon. This should help churches understand that, yes, they can do a part, and it's a very easy part. in helping homelessness and helping homeless people living in vehicles to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Let's see, Norman, your hand up was next.
Oh, I'm just excited to say that we broke ground on our permanent tiny home village on Monday. Woohoo! That is really exciting. We're going to increase our capacity so that way we could have 10 tiny home units, 2 doubles. We're anticipating it should be finished by the end of April, so April the 28th. Really exciting news. And then we are meeting with James Pogue and CLR's team to start receiving participants from all over Pierce County. Another exciting step in our program. So just wanted to share.
Yeah, we got to celebrate those things. Thanks, Norman. Ryan?
This is good trouble, but in this past week, it's been a really good week for me personally. Went to the 27th district roundtable, so saw Senator, Speaker of the House, and Jay's the head of the House Transportation Committee, and had good talk about them, about housing. One of the challenges I put out for them is to, if you think about all the spare bedrooms in Pierce County, what kind of legislation could you do to put incentives and protections for people to open their homes? And with the wave of a pen, we could get enough beds for all of our homeless. And just to chew on. And had a similar conversation last night with Chiquita Elders Group that are doing the city code on shared housing and whatnot. Again, what can we do to get people to open their homes and get beds for all of our homeless? Trying to build ourselves out of the housing shortage really isn't going to do it. So those were all good. And then another idea came up that I just wanted to share with the group is adding people under the 30% AMI to our list of protected classes, because they're poor, the most vulnerable people in our community, and that would open them up for targeted programs, hate crime protections, things of that nature. So anyway, busy week.
Thanks, Ryan, and thanks for your engagement with the legislators. Ed, your hand's up. And you're still muted.
Okay, so in the evaluation of the camping ban that Tacoma put out, they forgot to talk about the 74 people that died in the same time frame from November 14th through the date of the report. I kind of take exception to that. If you're going to be forcing people to move and influencing people, you better take responsibility for it. So to the city council and the mayor and everybody all the way down to, sorry, Caleb, you got 74 people to answer for. How'd they die and why are we still killing them? Thank you.
Thanks, Ed and Mark.
There we go. Hi. So this is unrelated, related but unrelated. I know I've talked a lot about miracle messages, and forgive me again for this one, but this is one we can all relate to. I think probably most of you saw the abhorrent video in of the woman being sprayed in San Francisco with a powerful hose as if she was a piece of excrement on the street, that went viral and was covered CNN and a bunch of other places. And Miracle Messages became involved through a social worker on that. And we in attempt to locate her family members, a support system for her because she was all alone with severe mental and physical needs. ailments and needs. And just to, that as a happy story, will hopefully be reunited with her family. Will have that support group, will have that, and they can speak on her behalf as, she is somebody's someone. She's somebody's mother, somebody's daughter, and it just brings the humanity back into this from a terrible, terrible episode that made us all sick. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Mark. That actually fits in really well with how we like to close out the meeting, with some sense of some positivity or success story. And I open the floor if anyone else has any success story they'd like to share today. We'd love to hear it as we wrap up today's meeting. Yeah, go ahead, Teresa.
Well, Lori, you should tell us the success story about your art showing.
Okay,
How
well, I
long will
guess
it still
that's,
be there?
yeah, that's sort of good trouble, I guess. So I had the opportunity to put some artwork up at Marlene's in their area where they have, places for people to sit and some merchandise and stuff. And so I'm very honored to be there in the first place. And it's focused around, it's called The Unseen. It's focused around just paintings about and of people who are homeless. I do, if you don't know, if you are on Instagram, follow me. It's Lori Davenport Art. I do a sketch every day. I mostly 99.9% of the time sketch people. A lot of this is in my neighborhood, walking around Tacoma. So I see a lot of people who are unhoused, and just looking at people, sketching them, making them part of the artwork that I do has changed the way I look at people. And I think having artwork created from that point of view through all my work, and it's been going on for like 3 years, having that up on the walls and having people sit there and eat their lunch or whatever and look at it, I think hopefully makes a difference in the way people look at people that they normally just walk past, because it makes everybody uncomfortable to see people who are sleeping on the sidewalk or carrying all their possessions around with them. So that's what it's all about. I hope you can go see it. It's had great response from what I've heard, and it's going to be up through the end of April. Originally, it was going to be up just through March. So, and we have a lot of our materials there too, hanging up on the walls, pointing out to people that, there are reasons why people become homeless that don't just have to do with drug addiction and mental health problems. So, so go see it. Yeah.
Thank you, Lori. That's a great way to close out today's meeting. So thank you everyone for being here today. As always, if you have an interest in the capacity to do so, we will have a small group of us staying on the call to plan for upcoming meetings, and we'll do that in about 5 minutes. But before we go there, Tammy, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, coming in at the end of everything. Just wanted to put out the reminder of the fundraiser on April 1st at the Puyallup Elks Lodge. Starts at 5 o'clock. Tickets are $15. It's dinner and a comedy show. And I was made aware, and I'm not going to say what it is, of a big surprise that's going to be happening at that event. So I'm hoping some of the coalition will represent at the fundraiser. That would be great. And if you have a group of 4 to 6 and you want to reserve a table, let me know. I'm putting that information in the chat now.
Awesome. Thanks for the reminder, Tammy. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay warm, and we'll see everybody back here next Friday.